Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
A proactive recruiting plan trumps a reactive one every time. Like that SEO play on words on Trump there. My name is Rick Girard, and I thank you for tuning in to the Higher Power Radio Show. The purpose of our show is to give entrepreneurs solutions to their most difficult hiring challenge. And our mission is to help entrepreneurs solve those problems. My guest and I will drill down on some of the most challenging issues and provide proven techniques to help in effectively landing the most talented people to help your company grow successfully. Today, our guest is Michael Krug. Michael leads talent acquisition operations for Hoag Hospital here in Orange County. And prior to that, he was a technical sourcer over at SpaceX. His expertise is in building quality talent pipelines and developing effective recruitment and sourcing strategies through the use of technology and advanced analytics. So last week our show, I don't know if you heard it, but we were focused on building a strong culture by injecting core company values into the hiring process, which is a great setup for today's show because one of the elements in culture, defining who you are as a company, is also crucial in building a proactive recruiting process for your company. Today we're going to talk about the advantages of a proactive process in building your company and how to do it with the least amount of pain possible. So, Michael, in your opinion, what exactly is kind of reactive versus proactive recruiting?
Well, reactive recruiting is really transactional in a sense where you're not anticipating what you need. It's what you need right now, not in the future. So it could be unexpected resignation or a leave of absence that you're not prepared to handle. And then so everyone's kind of running around with their hair on fire trying to get a position posted and sourced and get someone hired on board quickly. Proactive recruiting is where we put a little bit more thought and strategy behind our recruitment plan, and that is looking at technology, understanding what tools are available for us to anticipate what the future staffing needs are, but also understanding why there is an anticipated need. What are the key drivers, and really getting down to the source of what a hiring manager is expecting to do and how they're going to do it. And that really adds a lot more value to the conversation where we can determine what type of strategies we can implement to support their needs.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it depends on the company's stage. I mean, both reactive and proactive are a crucial element in the hiring process no matter what, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the most common platform of recruiting that recruiting companies use today, which is reactive recruiting, right? So, how would you define reactive recruiting environment?
Well, there's no escaping a reactive recruiting environment. Everyone has to have a reactive staffing need at some point. Like I said, things happen; they're unexpected. But when it's appropriate, I always think about it as are you prepared to handle the reaction? What's your response, and how quickly are you going to react to that response? And also knowing what tools and resources are available to support that reactionary need. In a lot of environments, what you see here in startups and even in large companies is that we have a high use of contingency labor. So we have staffing firms that can ramp up pretty quickly. They can onboard candidates much quicker than a larger corporation could.
Yeah.
And so there's a benefit there. There's a value to having a reactive recruitment plan or strategy.
Sure. And it's basically to build a pipeline quickly.
Correct. There may be a project that needs to get off the ground running, or there may be a sales force that we need to build up and implement pretty quickly. And sometimes most corporate recruiting functions aren't sophisticated or aren't trained and developed to handle that type of bandwidth very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that answers, really when it's the most appropriate, when you've got a lot of jobs that you need to fill very, very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, you could go through a desktop refresh project or a systems upgrade, or you're doing a move ad change and trying to deploy desktops in another location. And you're not going to have 20 to 30 desktop support people to go out there and implement, but you've got staffing vendors, you've got other firms that can do a statement of work or provide contingent staffing needs quickly.
So it's really more appropriate project-based work in which needs to get done pretty quickly, rather than when you're trying to build knowledge-based workers for a full-time roles.
Yes and no. It really depends on the internal resources you have available to you. So if you're in a human resource department or a recruiting department that has a small budget and only 2 FTEs to support 200 open positions, it's good to have that extension of your internal recruitment department to handle a lot of that high volume, maybe even a lower skill set need.
And I think it's crucial, too, that companies keep in mind that they don't let that need overwhelm their cultural fit or their need to hire those positions, overrule their ability to their judgment in hiring the right people for the role.
Correct. If done in a good way, any corporate recruiting team and who they partner with, you shouldn't sacrifice quality over speed. And if you have really good processes and good interviewing techniques, you should be able to apply that through a full-time employee position all the way to a contractor position, no matter if it's a long-term need or a short-term need. If you have good, consistent processes, you never want to sacrifice quality and jeopardize the culture that you have as an organization.
Okay. Yeah, most definitely. What point should a company that's fully has a reactory recruitment process, when should they shift toward a more proactive mode?
Wow, I think everyone's trying to find the secret sauce on that one.
Yeah.
But I can only tell you from my experience, and that is a lot of that starts with the data. The supply and demand information that's available to you as a recruitment leader, recruiter, strategist, being able to advise your hiring managers based on what's available, what's out there, and what's realistic to deliver. And sometimes, if you're not focused on what's around the corner, you're going to struggle delivering what the hiring manager is looking for.
Got it. Now, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're building a company up, right? Should this process be built into the beginning?
Absolutely. I think some organizations, especially in my startup experience, is that talent acquisition never has a seat at the table when it comes to those planning discussions. So whether it be a Q3 product launch or an upgrade, and they're wanting to roll out a new system or technology, new process, well, it would be in their best interest to include the people who are going to find that talent.
Sure.
And so when we look at being able to be proactive and building those strategies, it's important to be there at the beginning so that we can advise and provide realistic expectations. I can tell you from being in a healthcare environment, there's very limited resources that are highly specialized in some of our nursing areas, and we have to understand how long it takes to fulfill those needs, who's out there, what's available, who our competitive landscape is, so that we can kind of bake that into our recruiting strategy.
Got it. We're speaking with Michael Krug right now. He's the manager of talent acquisitions for Hoag, about the importance of building a proactive recruiting process. And we just discussed the difference between the two methods. We needed to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to build out that proactive recruiting strategy.
Imagine
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything. Your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life skills workshops, job skills training. We provide the perfect interview outfit, and we get clients placed in jobs. Call Working Wardrobes, 714-210-2460. Donate, volunteer, invest, hire.
You're listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, giving you access to recruiting techniques that will help you hire key talent to build your company towards real success. Rick is a recruiting executive and entrepreneur who's been successfully recruiting in the aggressive Silicon Valley technology landscape for the past 2 decades. After a very successful stint at Apogee, he founded Stride Search in 2012. Based on a lean efficiency model, Stride has uniquely positioned itself as a leader in retained search for the most critical talent hires within a small organization. Whether you're a startup executive or recruiting professional, by listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, you will walk away with skills to help you attract and hire great talent. Now back to Higher Power with Rick Girard.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Higher Power Radio Show, and I'm your host, Rick Girard. So we're talking with Michael Krug, Manager of Talent Acquisition Operations at Hoag, and we just talked about reactive recruiting, and now we're going to talk about the good stuff, how to implement a successful proactive recruiting strategy. So really, when you start building a proactive strategy, I feel it's crucial to build it from the beginning to really minimize the cost of making bad hires and cutting in on the bottom line, correct? Mm-hmm. So what are the key elements to having a proactive recruiting strategy or to building one? Yeah,
I think the foundation of any proactive recruiting strategy is going to come down to relationships. And we all know relationships are based on trust and credibility and respect. And so, but you can't always jump in with a turnkey solution based on analytics and predictive staffing models to make something work. Because if your hiring managers don't know it and understand why you're doing it, you lose that crucial buy-in. So it's important that your relationships are you take a lot of time growing those. Yeah. The other point is data, and I always tell my team this, is that you want to be the most prepared person in the room. No matter what meeting it is, if there's a staffing person involved, you want to make sure that you know your business better than anybody else. And so it's coming equipped with data to the party. And when you have turnover data, hiring data, leave data, separations, transfer data, it adds more credibility to the conversation. So when you're trying to build that relationship, it really shows your hiring leader that you've taken time and energy to learn their business, to understand what are the key drivers from a staffing perspective that impact their operations. And then when you have that information, it's really about being an advisor. So, we in recruiting, we suggest and advise. We leave it up to the managers to do and act. And it's understanding what levers and strategies to either pull or to implement. And I think that really helps a hiring leader understand, what's available to them at their disposal by partnering with their recruitment professional earlier on in the conversation, much later than, down the road. Okay, so you're an entrepreneur. You keyed on something that's really interesting, which is being the most prepared person in the room, right? You're an entrepreneur. You actually just started up a new company. You got a bunch of money, and now you're ready to hire. How do you prepare yourself for that? Because most entrepreneurs don't. You're absolutely right. It's a lot of companies, were either pre-IPO tech startups. They want to scale quickly. They've got a nice round of series funding that they're ready to burn through, and a lot of that comes into human capital planning. But from what I've seen is to ramp up quickly. You really got to understand what the direction of the organization is going. Not just I need a body now. I need 30 salespeople. If you don't understand the vision and the mission and what you're trying to accomplish, how are you going to effectively communicate that to the people that you're trying to recruit? Yeah. But you do have to have different levers and resources available to you when you're trying to grow quickly, whether it be staffing agencies, retained search firms, name generation companies, you name it. I think those are all kind of built into that proactive approach.
Okay. So planning is key here then, right? So they've got to take the time to sit down and figure out what they want, who might be the best people for what they need, and work with their team to actually work through their networks and then kind of branch out from there, correct?
Yeah, I mean, planning is absolutely critical because then, if I'm a nursing director, like I'll give an example, a generic example. If I'm a nursing director and I need a critical care nurse out there, but that there's only so many critical care nurses out in a geographic location, and based on what you need, this is how long it's supposed to take to fill those positions. Not just fill it, but also orient and onboard that position. So your normal fill rate of 25 days could be now 65 days or 90 days. And so being able to kind of be prepared in that planning process to educate and raise awareness around what that hiring roadmap will look like is just going to make things a lot more harmonious in that relationship.
Got it. So you had mentioned to me before that being preemptive and actually building up pipelines before the roles are even open was pretty important.
It is. I think what I see most common today and even in my previous careers and pre-IPO tech startups, and that is, HR is almost inclusive. We work in silos and even in intra-department areas where we don't have access to bits and pieces of information. Mm-hmm. It's almost tough to, you're begging, you're pulling, you're fighting for information so that you can build long-term strategies. But it's, when you're shifting to a proactive model, you've got to have that data. You've got to understand, what's available to you. But also looking at the data, we look at turnover, transfer, separations, leaves.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. What's your sources of data? So
yeah, it's really finding out why is that business there in the first place? How do they operate? How do they generate revenue? And so when you have all those components together, you can start to predict exactly how many hires they need to have over a certain amount of time in order to break even with their staffing levels, but also produce the type of outcomes that they're trying to accomplish. And I think, having all that information is going to help a recruitment professional be successful.
Okay, got it. What do you find is kind of the most effective way to build up this process? Maybe 2 or 3 points of things that somebody can pick off that they could implement today.
Yeah. It's what are you hoping to accomplish? It's people, process, and service are like the really key ingredients where you look at what things you need to know in order to develop an effective sourcing or recruitment strategy. Mm-hmm. Understanding what you're looking for, supply and demand, the process in which you acquire or find that staff. Is there a standardization within the interview and selection tool? How are you assessing candidates? How is the interview process going? What's the hiring and onboarding process like that? So if you don't understand the process, it's really hard to make sure that you know how to build a proactive strategy.
Yeah.
And then service. How are you, not only you being measured as a recruitment professional from a service standpoint, but also how is the hiring manager being evaluated? Is it about attention, attrition, employee satisfaction, employee engagement scores, patient satisfaction? What are some of those things that, from a service perspective, that are kind of stitched into that strategy that help not just add transparency across the whole continuum of the recruitment process, but also we can measure and refine over year to get better.
Okay, great. So what type of results should somebody expect from a proactive process? So from my side, when I'm working with companies, a lot of my clients can expect, like, for example, maybe a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 interview to placement ratio. What do you see on your end in the environment that you have?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen by being prepared and understanding, spending a lot of time in that intake session and being involved in the planning process, we've seen a really good filtering process when it comes to our applicant to interview and our interview to hire ratios. I'm not going to go over the specifics, but those are a couple things that you can see immediately.
Got it.
By not just understanding the requirement, but understanding the process. Faster response times when it comes to time to fill. We've seen you can see immediate results in that, depending on what type of level, but also in quality too. You look at retention, first-year hires and separations. You look at performance. You look at productivity. Those are
crucial for company building.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Right.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time for now. Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to share some ideas with us. Now, if somebody would like to get in touch with you, how do they reach you?
Well, you can reach me at michael.krug, Krug, at hoag.org. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, thanks to everybody for tuning in. I want to give a quick thanks to our engineer, Paul Roberts, our producers, Joan Park, Shanti Ryle, and our executive producer, Kim Iverson. Do tune in next week as our guest will be the world-famous Peter Lefkowitz. He's a legendary recruiting trainer and creator of the Morgan Methodology Recruiting. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and this has been the Higher Power Radio Show.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard on OC Talk Radio.